Krishnaji constantly provoked one to inquire into the depths of one's being, and this was not always very easy. It often created situations of crisis within oneself. There were times when one felt one's identity was being threatened. And generally, I lived with these crises and solved them myself. But there was one particular crisis which I just could not meet. I was torn apart. I felt I knew no way to go to. And as I trusted Krishnamurti implicitly, and I felt very safe in his presence, I thought he was the person I could go to. I went to him, and he was reclining in his bed. He made me sit down by his side, and he said, "My friend, what have you done to yourself?" And I said, "Krishnaji, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what is right." Obviously, I was looking at him, hoping that he would guide me. And Krishnaji, with great affection in his eyes, looked at me and said, "I know exactly what you are going through, but I am not going to tell you. For if I tell you, I will deprive you of a great opportunity to discover something about yourself." And after that, he asked me a number of questions which helped me look at myself. And at the end of the meeting, I felt so happy that he had not answered my question, that he had left it to me, that I literally hugged him. I went to Krishnaji and said to him, "Sir, I am very emotional, and my emotion is blocking my perception." And he said, "Wait, is your emotion blocking your perception, or is it clouding your perception?" And I thought for some time, and I realized that it was clouding my perception. So he discussed emotion at great length with me, and then he said something very interesting. He said, "Look, it's good to be emotional." Then he said, "You are young, and you have lot of youthful idealism. It's good to have youthful idealism. It's good to be intellectual. But when intellect, idealism, and emotion overpower perception, they're dangerous." And he put his hands like this, perception on the top. Krishnaji had been constantly asking a number of questions. And for a lot of years, I had been pushing myself hard, thinking about it, analyzing myself, analyzing his words. And I had reached a point where it had become quite difficult for me to move further. And I had become quite tense. And one day, Krishnaji said to me, during a certain dialogue, "Rajesh, do it now." And it was like a noose choking me. I went to him later that evening, to his room, and I said, "Sir, you said, do it now. What am I to do now? I don't want to come to you after 10 or 15 years saying I'm still in conflict." He looked at me and smiled and said, "Relax. You can do nothing about it." I was a little puzzled. I said, here was a man who had said, "Do it now," and now he's saying you can do nothing about it. So he continued. He said, "Rajesh, what we are doing is like drilling into the brain to strike gold. You may drill and drill and drill, and nothing may happen. As drilling is important, so is not drilling." I was listening. And he said, "It's like putting a seed in the ground. In the beginning, you have to do hard work to remove all the stones. You have to water the ground. You have to dig a hole. But then you must allow the seed to go into the soil. And then you must cover the soil. And he said something very nice. He said, the seed needs the darkness of the soil for it to flower. Krishnamurti often used metaphors in his discussions with me. Well, one I remember, which may be of interest, is how he used one metaphor once and the exact opposite the next year. One year he found that I was questioning everything. I was being too logical, and I was not allowing any statement to go unchallenged. And he turned to me and said, Rajesh, have you seen a dog on a leash? It's good for the dog to roam around sometime. And I understood what he meant. And the next year, probably I overcompensated and I became rather open and not too critical. And probably I was absorbing everything that he was saying. And the next year he turned to me and said, the dog must be held in a leash too at times. The aspects of Krishnamurti that impressed me most are his utter honesty and a very, very deep regard for facts. I've never found Krishnamurti dodge facts, however unpleasant they be, about himself or about the people around him. And he continuously challenged us to face facts. Another thing about him that was very impressive was his affection. He had boundless affection for people, for villagers, for birds, for trees, for animals. And his exuberance and his love for everything around him was very moving. One other thing which I found rather unusual in Krishnamurti, I have not found this in most people, was when he spoke, it was as if he was listening to what he was himself saying, whether what he was saying was correct, whether it had the ring of truth in it. And I know of several instances where he would suddenly stop in the middle and ask, am I saying something which is correct? This is something which I have not found in people. And once when I was talking to him, probably I was repeating some of the phrases used by him. And Krishnamurti turned to me and said, Rajesh, wake up, you have become dull. And referring to himself, he said, probably you have heard this nonsense too much. And it was a real shake-up, that you were using words which were not true to yourself.